Okay, hi everyone. Can hear me? Yes, and can see the screen as well. Yes, no, all right. Okay, so can see and can hear me as well. Okay, can you let me know where exactly did we stop last class? I think we discussed. So we were in the 2016 paper. We did part one. Did I completely, let's say, discuss the part two, or did we? Where do we have to start? Someone, anyone? Part two. Okay. So today we'll ideally I will want to finish all the papers, right? 17, 18, 19, and up to 20, right? So we'll be going a bit faster. Now I think you all are somewhat okay with this unit, and we've been doing this unit for a long time, right? So we'll start with this. I'm not gonna wait for any longer. We'll get things going. Okay. Right. 2016 third one, part two. Why is Y is a downward sloping linear demand curve, more price elastic at higher price ranges and more price inelastic at lower price ranges. So it comes with a very simple method. I think I was explaining halfway last class, right? So I'll just explain the basics here, right? So hoping you all come with some understanding, right? If you look at a demand curve, right, a downward sloping demand curve, so they are saying that it is elastic at higher price ranges. So you know this is the price axis, right? This is the quantity axis. So in the higher price ranges, it is elastic, and then they are saying in the lower price ranges, right? Draw it in blue. In the lower price ranges, they're saying it is inelastic. So why is it elastic at higher price ranges, and why is it, let's say, uh, inelastic at whatever other price ranges? Why is that? What do you think the reason is? The reason here is, guys, right? Remember what is PED? PED is, right? So if you calculate PED, PED is equal to, right, the change in QD. So instead of change, I'll put this icon, right? This thing, change in QD over the change in price multiplied by the price over quantity demand. So what you have to know that, right, in a question like this, when you're calculating PED, right? Okay, give me a second. Stuck. Okay. Okay, multiplied by price, and over here you have quantity. Demand. Okay, so if you look at this equation, right, when there is an equation like this, you know, this first component, right, the change in QD and over change in P, that component in this equation, right, is constant. This first component, right, this does not change. The change in QD over change in P, this is the slope of the demand curve. So if the PED value is to change, right, if the value of PED is to change, that these two components, the price and the quantity demand ratio, these two components are the ones that have to change. This does not change. So then if you look at higher price ranges, now if you look at this price range, right, the price is high, the quantity is low. So you have a higher price, the quantity demand is at a lower rate. So you get a value that is elastic. So you get a higher value here. If you look at lower price ranges, it'll say a price range like this. So at this price range, right, the numerator, which is the price, is low and the quantity demand is high, right? So lower price, higher quantity demand. So basic maths, right? When this does not change along the curve, why does the value of PED change? Because the price and quantity demand changes. Now, for example, let's say let's say the slope of this demand curve. Let's say slope of this demand curve, let's say, is 5, right? Slope is 5. Give me a second. Let's say the slope of the demand curve is 5, and I'll give you 2 points, right? So let's say this point here and this point here. We'll just give in a few numbers, right, for this point and for this point. So they're saying at higher price ranges it is elastic, and at lower price ranges it is inelastic. That is what they're saying. If price is high, it's elastic. No, price is high, it's in price is, yes, price is high, it's elastic, not inelastic. I'll prove it to you here, right? So let's say the slope of this demand curve is 5, right? So I'll just give, let's say, random numbers here. How much can I give? let's say I give here the price, let's say to get a price of, okay, this board is stuck. Give me a second. Okay, so I'll give a price of, let's say 100, right? Price 100 over here, right? And then I'll, let's say, give a price of, let's say a quantity of somewhere around 500, 500 divided by, okay, so let's say quantity is also 100, right? So, and at this point, I'll say price is 20, right? Price I'll say is 20. At this point here, price is 20. And then let's say quantity, I'll say somewhere around, let's say 600, right? So we'll just give a rough quantity. So can you all calculate PED at both of these points and tell me at the first point and at the second point, how much is the PED? The slope is 5. Change in QD over change in P is 5, right? So minus 5. And then for P, you put the value, and for quantity, you put the value. And can you tell me how much do you get as PED at both these points? Yeah. So if you look at point A, the first point, right? Slope is 5. Change in QD or change in P is 5. I'm just giving a number there, 5. Okay, so not 5. Let's put in the actual number that is there. Change in QD is 500. 500 divided by 80. 500 you divide by 80 is 50 divided by 8 is 4. No, 4 point. 1 second. 100 divided by 80 is 6.25. So change in QD or change in P is 6.25. 6.25 over price, that is 100, divided by the quantity, that is another 100. So you get a PED value of 6.25 in the first point, right? At the topmost point there. Then at the second point, again 6.25. So here at this point, it's 6.25, the PED, right? Minus 6.25 at the topmost point. Then at the bottom point, change in QD or change in P is not going to change, right? That is the slope of your curve. That will stay the same. What is going to change? Your price and quantity ratio is going to change. So at the second point, right? So 6.25 is still there. Your price is now 20. Your quantity is how much? Quantity is 600. So when you solve this, 6.25 into 20 divided by 600, you get 0.2. So can you see at the first point, right? At this point, when you calculated elasticity, it was 6.25. At this bottommost point, when you're calculating elasticity, 0.2. 6.25 is elastic and 0.2 is inelastic. You know, anything more than 1 is elastic. Anything less than 1 is inelastic. So what exactly is happening here? Why is this value changing? Why is the value of PED changing along this curve? The value of PED is changing. The slope is constant, but this price and quantity demand ratio, that is changing. So you see earlier at the first point, it's 100 and 100. At the second point, this price has decreased, right? The numerator has decreased and the denominator has increased. So when the numerator decreases and denominator increases, overall the value falls. So that is the reason why, right? A downward sloping linear demand curve is more elastic at higher price ranges. So at higher price ranges, since the price is high, the value is higher. And at lower price ranges, since the price is low and the quantity demand is high, you have a inelastic value, right? So hoping that part is fine, right? Hoping you all did that and came as well. Okay, done with that. Then moving on to the third one, very, very easy question, right? Given the income elasticity of demand of the following goods, how would you classify luxury, necessity, inferior goods? So you all know the basics, right? If the YED is greater than 1, okay, YED is positive, it's a normal good, right? If the YED is negative, it's an inferior good. If it is positive and if it is greater than 1, luxury, between 0 and 1, it is a necessity. Should you write the definition for PED? Maybe if you want, you can write, but not really needed. Okay, so bottled water, I'm just going to dictate the answers, guys. This is luxury, more than 1. Cowpea is going to be a necessity, right? Between 0 and 1, still a positive. Sorry, cowpea is a negative 0.8. There is a minus 0.8. It's going to be a inferior good, bottled water luxury, minus 0.8 inferior good, 0.5, right? Plus 0.5 will be a necessity or a necessity good, and 1.8 again will be a luxury good, right? It's a very simple thing. That's the easiest 4 mark you can get based on what is the value of YED. Hoping y'all are okay with that. Okay, and then coming into this question, the fourth question on a tax, right? So fourth question, they're saying diagram below shows the demand and supply curves of a good sold in a competitive market. Assume the government has now imposed a excise tax of 60 rupees. So first thing that you have to know is when there is a tax, right? The supply curve has to, doesn't producer revenue have relationship with PED? Yes, producer revenue has a relationship with PED, but they're not asking for that. Producer revenue, total revenue, and PED. I think I've explained that when we do MCQs. Yeah. Okay. So when there is a tax of 60, what happens, right? The supply curve would shift this way, right? It would go like this now. So remember, the distance between these two is the unit tax now. So if this is 0, now if there is a 60 rupee tax, that means the new supply curve should start from here. So now this is the new supply curve. They're asking how much will consumer surplus change as a result of the tax. So I will not show you all the calculations, guys. You all can do the calculations on your own. So what you should do, this is consumer surplus before, right? So if you all want, give me the answers, I'll let you all know. So this is consumer surplus before. What is consumer surplus after? Consumer surplus after is only this small area that I'm highlighting in pink, right? This small area. So how do you find the change in consumer surplus? You find the consumer surplus before, you find the consumer surplus after, and then tell what is the difference. What is the answer we get there? Minus 45,000. Before is 60,000, after is 15,000. Yeah. So the change is, then you can say the change in consumer surplus has decreased by 15,000. So you can give your answer that way. So you show your working. What is consumer surplus before? What is consumer surplus after? Easy question. Then they're asking how much will producer surplus change as a result of the tax. So again, same methodology. Producer surplus before is this entire part. Now producer surplus after, first you have to find the tax revenue. This part is the tax, right? You know, this part is the tax. So producer surplus after becomes only this small area that I'm highlighting in yellow. This small area is producer surplus after. So how much do we get there as an answer? Same thing? Or is it a different value? Again, 15,000? Yeah. Okay. So then again, producer surplus also, you can say decreased by 15,000, right? Easy questions. We've done this before, so I'm not going to go into detail calculating one by one. Okay. Done. So then the third one, how much will the revenue of the government collect from the excise tax? How much revenue will government collect? Government is going to collect this much of revenue, right? This is the government revenue, this box. 60 into 1,000. 60 into 1,000, that is 60,000. So government revenue will be 60,000, right? Easy question that. Give me a second. Stop. Okay, and then the final one, the value of deadweight loss. So which one is the deadweight loss? That small triangle over there. So the triangle over there, what is the value? Half into 60 into 1,000. So you get a 30,000 deadweight loss. Yeah, so it's an easy questions. I'm hoping all of y'all would have been able to score the 8 marks here, right? If you get a question like this, it's the easiest that you can ever get. Okay, so that is the 2016 paper. I don't think there was anything hard. Maybe the only a bit of hard question would have been the second part. Apart from that, I'm hoping all the other parts would have been very much easier in this paper. So hoping you all would have scored at least somewhere around, let's say, 15 or more easily, right? So that's 2016 done. Okay, then we'll come into 2017. Okay, so this is the paper that I wrote for A levels, right? For, I don't know if it's the good or the bad. For some reason, there was no calculation in the 2017 paper, right? So 2017 paper, there was no calculation. So they say number one, guys, easy one, right? State other factors than its own price that might influence demand of a commodity. So what are the other factors? You can say price of substitutes, price of complements, consumer income, consumer taste, right? All of those things, right? So future price expectations, all of that. So write 3 of that. We've done that. Then they have number 2, again, a very easy question. Distinguish between change in demand and change in quantity demand. Okay, so we've discussed this before. Change in demand is when, any other factor other than price changes. So when there is a change in demand, what happens? There is a shift in the demand curve. So change in demand is this, right? When any other factor affecting demand changes, the demand curve will either shift right or shift to the left. That is a change in demand. Then what is a change in quantity demand? A change in quantity demand is where, while other factors are held constant, the price of the good is changing, right? The price of the good is changing. So you're moving along the curve. It's a point movement. I think we've discussed this before. It's an easy question for 4 marks. Then again, third question also, I think we did this, right? I explained the law of supply and the reasons for it, profitability and increasing marginal cost, increasing opportunity cost. I did it last class, no? Yes or no? Yeah, did it last class, no? Okay. So define law of supply and the reasons for this. So law of supply, you can say, according to law of supply, they say there is a positive relationship between price and quantity supplied, while all other factors affecting supply are held constant at a given point of time, something like that. So then what are the two reasons? Two reasons. One is profitability. No, guys, not substitution and income. Substitution and income comes to law of demand, right? For law of supply, the two reasons are, one is the profitability of the producer. So higher the price, the more profits the person can earn. I explained this last class, right? Hoping all were there. And then the second reason is the increase in marginal cost. I think I shared my tute and explained that part, right? So that is what you have to write again. Okay, so see, same questions are now repeated again and again and again and again. Okay. Then they have the fourth question here. They say, using a demand and supply diagram, explain how granting of a production subsidy on a good would affect the surplus enjoyed by producers. So you know what you have to draw in this? It's a very easy question. You have to simply draw a diagram, right? And you have to show how is the consumer surplus increasing, sorry, producer surplus increasing when there is a subsidy, right? So I'll use the Zoom whiteboard. It can draw a clear diagram there. So question is, how does the 2017, okay, if you are unsure what the question is, so remember the question says, using a demand and supply diagram, explain how granting of a production subsidy on a good would affect the surplus enjoyed by producers. So how is producer surplus going to change because of a subsidy, right? So it's a very easy question, right? So what do? You draw your diagram, right? So you draw a normal diagram, right? Demand. So you have your demand curve, you have a supply curve, right? And then you can maybe mark equilibrium price, equilibrium quantity. And then when there is a subsidy, what happens when there is a subsidy? The supply curve shifts to the left, right? There's a rightward shift in the supply curve. So when there is a rightward in supply curve, now you have a new equilibrium price and quantity, right? New equilibrium price, new equilibrium quantity. When there's a new equilibrium price and quantity, right? Now you can find the entire government's subsidy expenditure. You connect from the new supply curve to your old supply curve. You draw the box, right? There you have this, right? That part. Then what is the producer surplus before and after? So what you can do is you can label it in numbers and show. So this is the producer surplus before the subsidy, right? And then let's say I'll draw it, let's say in another color, let's say in yellow, right? Producer surplus after the subsidy is this entire part. So it increases by these days. So what you can do is, if you all want, you all can put letters A, B, C, D, and you can explain. So you can show that, right? When there is a subsidy, right? Now the equilibrium price that the producer receives has increased. So when the equilibrium price producer receive has increased, what happens? There is his producer surplus also increases. So you simply have to draw this diagram and explain. There is nothing else that you have to draw. How could you explain how differentiate luxury, necessity, and inferior? So luxury, necessity, and inferior based on the income elasticity value, based on your YED value, right? It's a basic area. If your YED is positive, right? If you have a positive income elasticity, it's a normal good, right? It's a normal good. I think I've explained this before. It's a normal good. And so positive means anything greater than zero. No? So if it is between 0 and 1, then it's a necessity, right? If it is greater than 1, then it's a luxury. right? And also if your YED is negative, if you have a negative answer, then it's a inferior good, right? That is how you, based on YED, you can say whether it's a necessity, luxury, or a inferior good. Okay. Okay, so hoping this part is fine, the diagram. Yes, easy one, using a demand and supply curve diagram. How do you show this? Fine, any questions there, anyone? Fourth part. Okay, hoping all did it and came, and I think it's a easy manageable one. Okay, then going on to the, okay, to just to repeat, okay, the fourth one is using a demand and supply, how they're asking how the granting of a subsidy on a good would affect the surplus enjoyed by producer. They're simply asking you to show what is the producer surplus before and what is the producer surplus after. So that is what I'm showing in this diagram. So simply what you do is you draw a diagram, you show before the subsidy, right? This red area is the producer surplus. So you can't have colors, no, in your paper. You label, you say this is A, this is B. So you say before the subsidy the produced surplus is A and B, right? After the subsidy, so maybe again then put some letters C and maybe D and something, right? And then say after the subsidy now produced surplus increases from AB to AB, C and D. That is all that you have to do in that. Okay, there's nothing big that you have to do. It's simply a subsidy diagram, right? Basic unit 3 things. Okay, consequences mean both positive and negative. Yes, consequences in the sense what happens here because of this, right? So, okay, fifth part they're saying, what are the economic consequences of a maximum price for an essential good imposed by the government? So, when there is a maximum price, what is another word for maximum prices? Maximum prices are price ceilings, right? So, if the government comes and let's say imposes a price ceiling, what happens? So, they say they put a price ceiling. One thing that you can say is that there is a excess demand. Exactly, there is a excess demand, right? So excess demand, that is one point that you can say. Apart from that, what can you say? So you can say maybe gives rise to black market prices. There can be black market prices because of this. Rise to, yeah, so excess demand, you can connect to that black market prices. But yes, discourage investments. Okay, so getting your answers itself. Discourage investments. Discourage investments. Then you can consumer surplus, producer surplus decrease. Yeah, you can say that. Discourage investment. So you can say CS and PS. Consumer surplus, don't really talk about that, but we'll say producer surplus, right? So producer surplus decreases. Okay, so PS decreases. So simple things like that, if you can write, those are the consequences of this thing. Yeah, emergence of non-price rationing techniques like queuing systems, let's say ration cards and things like that. Anything is fine as long as you state around 4 to 5 points. That is that. Yes, inefficiencies in resource allocation, all of that, whatever that is there in the answer scheme will also make sense. The simple thing, right? Actually, if you look at this, how do we draw the, how do we need to draw the graph? No, you don't need to draw the graph. I just drew the graph for you all to see how it looks like in case you are not sure what a maximum price is, right? Economic surplus decrease, yeah, maybe you can say economic surplus decrease also. Okay, so basic points of what the consequences are. Consumer surplus does not really decrease, guys. Consumer surplus can even increase, so it depends on the market. The producer surplus definitely will decrease because a maximum price is put to support the consumer, right? So I'm sure whoever who taught you would have told you that there is a which part is consumer surplus, which part is producer surplus, right? So you would have seen that consumer surplus doesn't really decrease; it can even increase, it can even stay constant. Okay, so things, small things like that, you all can write. Okay, so these actually this question was very easy, right? This I think maybe the fourth one, fourth one is also very easy, right? And then the fifth one. So what are economic, guys? When you say economic consequence, they're just talking about the normal consequences. So consequences on what happens in the economy. So there is excess demand, it gives rise to black market prices, it discourages investment, right? Those things only you have to write. Okay. Is essentially consumer surplus after and before takes the same answer. Consume surplus after and before. No, it doesn't have to take the same answer. There is nothing like that. Okay, so that's the 2017 paper. Hoping that part is fine. So most of this was very, very easy. If a price ceiling is imposed, always there is a black market price. Yes, usually there will be emergence of black market price. Not always, but you can say there could be a black market price. You don't have to explain the consequences because they're simply asking what are the consequences. If they ask you to explain the consequences, then you could have written. So here when they ask what are the consequences, you can simply state. So if you simply state 5 points, you will get your mark. Okay. So all the answers that you all told will qualify. Okay. Right, that done. We'll move on to the next one. Okay, so this is 2017. Okay, so now we come into the 2018 question. So if I sell below the maximum price, also is black market price. No, if I sell above the maximum price, only market price. So maximum price means that is the maximum you can sell it. So if you sell more than that, only it's illegal. If you're selling less than that, no. Okay. Okay, so coming into this, right? This is the 2018 A level question, right? So 2018 A levels. Okay, distinguish between individual demand curve and the market demand curve. Guys, simple things, no, right? So individual demand, you say it is the demand of one person, right? Of one individual for a certain good. What is market demand? Market demand, right, is the, let's say, demand by everyone in the country or everyone in the economy for a certain good. So then you maybe you can talk about, a small point saying the determinants of individual demand and determinants of market demand are the same, but the only addition is when it comes to market demand, there is a new addition. What is that? Okay, so market demand, there is one additional determinant compared to individual demand. Exactly, the number of buyers. So you can say in the market demand, right, then the additional component is the number of buyers. So small thing as even it's just a 2-mark question. You don't have to write pages and pages. Okay, so a small thing like that is fine. Then they say a given good is an inferior good, but an inferior good is not necessarily a given good. I think I explained this story, right? When I talked it in the MCQs, right? So what you have to write here, guys, is that you say for a good to be a inferior good, there has to be what? A negative relationship between income and quantity demand. So if income increases, if you are buying less, if the demand is decreasing, that means it's a inferior good. So, okay, they're asking about the individual demand curve. Okay, not individual demand. Distinguish between individual demand and yeah. So individual demand curve and the market demand curve, it's the same thing. You don't have to, there is nothing that you have to write. So you can say individual demand curve represents the demand of one individual for one good, and the market demand curve represents the demand of everyone for a certain good. So the curve is representing the thing. There is nothing big that you have to go, and I don't think too much because it's a 2-mark question. So it's a very simple thing that you have to write. They will not expect you to write something very, very big. Okay. Okay, so the second question, given good is an inferior good, but an inferior good is not necessarily a given good, right? So again, I've explained this thing before, right? With, if you write the definition, it's fine. Right, I've explained this before. So ideally what you have to say, right, for a good to become an inferior good, right, it has to have, let's say, a negative relationship between income and demand. So it has to have a negative relationship between income and demand. So if you look at inferior goods and given goods, both of these goods have negative relationship between income and demand. So even for an inferior good, if income increases, you buy less. Even for a given good, if income increases, you buy less of it. But then what is the additional point? Given good is also a part of inferior good because of this negative relationship between income and demand. But the additional point is that a given good has what? What is the difference here? What is the additional point a given good has compared to an inferior good? Both have negative relationship between income and demand, but a given good, in addition to that, it has a what? Exactly. It has a positive relationship between price and quantity demand. There is a positive relation between price and quantity demand. And then after that, if you want, you can talk about the income effect, substitution effect. So in an inferior good, you can say that the substitution effect is much more stronger. In a given good, you can say the inferior, the income effect is much stronger, and things like that. Right. So things I've explained before, hoping you all have made note of it beforehand. Okay. So write that simple story, you get your mark. Okay. Okay, then the third part. The third part talks about what is meant by price elasticity of demand. Simple thing, no? Again, 2 mark question, right? They are asking you to simply define it. That is all they're asking. 2 marks, you don't write paragraphs and paragraphs, right? So what is meant by price elasticity of demand? You can say it is the responsiveness of quantity demand to a percentage change in price, right? While all other factors are constant or anything is fine. Okay? So mainly you should have the responsiveness of quantity demand to a percentage change in price. And also maybe then you can write the equation also if you want, changing QD over this thing. Okay, that's a simple thing there. Okay, then the fourth one. Fourth part says consider farmers who cultivate pumpkin in a certain country are having a hard time making a living selling pumpkins. The current demand and supply conditions in the pumpkin market are given by the equations below. QD equals 350 minus 10p, QS equals minus 40 plus 5p, price in rupees per kg, quantity in metric tons. Guys, now when they give you quantity and price like this, right, in metric tons and things like that, don't, for God's sake, don't try to convert this into kilograms, right? You work it this way itself. I've had students, 1 metric ton is 1,000 kilograms. You do this, you don't have to, right? So you get a quantity. Let's say quantity, you get an answer as 10. So 10 means 10 metric tons. You don't have to convert it to kilograms and confuse with these units, right? So price they have given per kg, quantity you can give it in tons. You don't have to convert that also into kg. There is no rule like that, right? So what is the market equilibrium price? Guys, can you give me numbers? I'm not going to calculate. Market equilibrium price is 26. Okay, so price is equal to 26 rupees and the quantity, so quantity is 90. So 90 metric tons, right? So 90 metric tons, price rupees 26. So simple calculation there, right? Just this thing. Now don't try to convert this 90 into price is per kg, then ton, this quantity also I should give kilograms. There is no need for that sort, right? You just give it price here, quantity there. Okay. Okay, then they say suppose the government decides to help the farmers by implementing a deficiency payment. Okay, they're giving a deficiency payment. Under this scheme, the government will guarantee farmers that they will receive 30 per kilogram of pumpkin and asks that they sell all the pumpkin they produce at whatever price they can get. They can get it from the market. How much pumpkins will the farmers supply to the market now? So I'll draw this in my Zoom whiteboard. Okay. So what do you have? Right? We have a situation. Right? We have a you have the demand. Give me values. Right? You have a supply curve, right? You have a equilibrium price that is 26 and an equilibrium quantity of 90. So you have a price of 26 and you have a quantity of 90. So now what does the government do? Government comes and imposes a minimum price of how much? They impose a minimum price of 30 rupees, right? So they've imposed a guaranteed price. There's a guaranteed price of 30. Okay, so guaranteed price of 30. The first question they're asking you, what is the quantity that suppliers are willing to supply, right? At this price? Is that what they're asking? Okay, so they're asking you, what price do farmers, okay, no. Okay, no, first part, how much pumpkins will the farmers supply to the market now? So at the price of 30, you have to find out how much are farmers going to supply. So what is the supply equation? QS equals minus 40 plus 5p. So you have to find out at this price, what is the quantity supplied? What is the answer that you get here? So if QS equals minus 40 plus how much, guys? Minus 40 plus equation minus 40 plus 5p. Okay. Okay. So it's minus 40 plus 5p. So what do you have to do now? So instead of p, you put 30 now. So you put minus 40 plus 5 into 30. You solve it, and how much do we get? We get an answer of 110. So 110 metric tons. So at the price of 30, these people are willing to supply 110 metric tons. So that is the answer. Your answer is 110 for that part. Then for the next part. Yeah. Next part, they're asking, what price do farmers need to charge in order to sell their entire supply? So you have to find out now, to buy this entire supply of 110, how much are consumers willing to pay? So how do you find that out? You need to find, and to buy this 110, you connect to the demand curve and you see, what is the price that consumers are willing to pay? So this is the amount that they're asking now, right? So how do you do this? So you have the demand equation, guys. What is the demand equation? Anyone? QD equals demand equation 350 minus 10p. So now what do you have to do to buy 110 units? What is the price, right? So minus 10p, you get 10p onto this side, and then you find it, right? So it's 240. P is equal to 24. So at the price of 24, what happens? The consumers are willing to buy this quantity of 110. Hoping you all know what a deficiency payment is. Okay, that. Then on the next part of it, next part they're asking, this part is also done. Part D. How much will the farmers receive from the government as deficiency payment? How much will they receive from the government as deficiency payment? This difference, right? So they will receive per unit, they will receive this much, 6 rupees. For how much units? For 110 units. So the farmers will receive a total of 6 rupees per unit into 110 units. So you can say 660. Yeah, don't really go into go to okay, no, this I think you'll have to give it in thousands. Give me a second. Okay, how much will farmers receive from the government as deficiency payment? So per kilogram they are getting, maybe this you can convert into the metric ton part and say, so per kilogram they are getting how much? They're getting 6 rupees, right? Per kg it is 6 rupees, right? Rupees 6. How many kilograms are there? There is a total of, right? There is total of how many metric tons? There is 110 metric tons. So this, maybe at this instance you can convert it into kilograms. So remember, there is 1000, but even if you don't convert, I think they would have given you all the marks, guys, right? So 1000 kg is 1 metric ton. So 110 this into, so this much of kilograms multiplied by 6. I don't think you have to go just check the actual answer scheme, guys. Anyone who has the actual answer scheme, can you check if they've given us 660 or have they converted it into kilograms and given it, or have they just given it 660? They given both. Okay, so then they would have given answers marks for both of this, right? So then maybe 6 into 110, right? So you can say total is 660, right? You can say 660, or you can convert it into kilograms and then you can give it, right? I think, yeah, they would have given both, because they can't expect you to know how many kilograms are there in a ton. So at that point you might confuse, right? There are 1000 kilograms in 1 ton, but some people might not really know that, right? So at that point they're not testing that whether you know how many kilograms a ton. They're testing you whether you know how to find the deficiency payment. So even if you have given 660 or convert into kilograms and given, they would have given you the answer. Okay, done. And then part E, calculate consumer surplus and producer surplus after the introduction of the deficiency payment. So for this, you first have to know what are the areas of consumer surplus and what are the areas of producer surplus. Okay, so consumer surplus, which one is the area, guys? This is the area for consumer surplus after the deficiency payment. Right? Okay, this cannot be seen. I'll put it in black. Okay, this thing that I'm drawing in black is the consumer surplus. Can you all tell me what is the area of this? Okay, for that you have to find this price here. This price here is needed. So you have to find the maximum demand price. So QD equals 350 minus 10p, you get 35. Yeah, so this is 35. Okay, so then what is your consumer surplus? Consumer surplus after the deficiency payment is half into 35 minus 24 into 110. So you get 604, 605. Yes, okay, so 605, that is consumer surplus. Then again, produce surplus. Which area is producer surplus? I'll show that, let's say in how much in green, right? So I'll show that. So this area is producer surplus, the one that I'm showing in green, this part. So how much do we get as an answer there? So producer surplus there. What is the price that we get over here? How did we get 35? So 35 here is the maximum demand price. So QD equals 350 minus 10p. When the quantity demand is 0, what is the price? So you put 0 equals 350 minus 10p and then find it. Okay. Okay. So here also same story. How do you get the 8? You put QS equals 0. 0 equals minus 40 plus 5p. And then find how much is p. You get 8. Okay. So producer surplus then we get is equal to again half into what is the height, that is 30 minus 8, that is 22. 22 into what is the quantity? 110. How much do we get there? 1200. Okay, so 1210. So that is how you get this simple calculation, guys. Remember, for these questions, right, first you need a little bit practice. Number 2, you need to know what is consumer surplus, what is producer surplus, which area is consumer surplus, which area is producer surplus. If you don't really know, start studying now, right? So any diagram, any teacher who would have taught you this deficiency payment, anything, would have told you this area is only consumer surplus, this area is only producer surplus. So teacher has done their part. You go and check whatever tute or whatever note that you are studying. Okay, so simple question there. In case they asked for deadweight loss, which area is deadweight loss? This area would be deadweight loss. This is the deadweight loss after a deficiency payment. Yeah, so you can calculate that. They have not asked. Okay, so that is that. So a calculation for 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 6 and 4, 10 marks. A 10-mark calculation, not 10 marks, more than that. Even equilibrium price, a 12-mark calculation. You should be lucky to get a calculation of this sort, because if you can get in your paper, trust me, if you get a calculation like this and you get the 12 marks, means you're somewhat sorted, no? And again, see the questions that is there. Question 1 and 3 is very much easy, right? It's question 2 that can be a little tricky. Previous screen, this. Okay. Done. SAP questions. Okay. So 2018 done. We'll then move on to the 2019. Have you all done the 2019 old syllabus paper? Yes, I put it, but have you all done? You want to skip it and go to the 2019 new one? Done? Okay, so we'll do this also faster then, right? So this question, if someone has not done, guys, this questions are there, right? Remember, I sent you all a link with the past papers. In that link, this paper is there, 2019, the old syllabus paper, right? Okay, so they say it's a very easy question. I think the entire thing is on a sum, and the last part is on a theory part, and the last theory part is a very confusing part. Okay, so right, I'm not going to go into very detail, guys, right? I want answers from you all. It's a subsidy question, right? They've given the demand and supply equations. They're asking find the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Yes, this is the 2019 old, right? Have I missed the questions? I think this is that. This is the 2019 A level, the old syllabus paper. Okay, old in sense the questions are the same, guys. The syllabus changed. So in 2019 and 2020, you will have both a new syllabus and an old syllabus. Because in case a student fails in 2018, he can do the 2019 old syllabus one, because others here study the new syllabus. That new syllabus, nothing changed big, but there is a paper. Okay, right. So they're asking for this thing. I think I did this with my 2022 A-level students also. Okay, find the equilibrium price and quantity for a product. So they're asking for equilibrium price and quantity, guys. Couple things. Can you all tell me what is the price and quantity? The first part of this, what do we get? price 26, right? So equilibrium price is rupees 26 and then the quantity is 48 units. Okay, so quantity, right? Simple question for 4 marks, right? You can't get it as easy as this. 48 units. And then the second part they're asking, calculate price elasticity of demand at equilibrium. PED at equilibrium. How do you find PED at equilibrium? So PED at equilibrium for part 2, right? You get the B component, right? B component of the demand equation multiplied by the price, that is, okay, multiplied by price divided by quantity demand. Price of QD, no? So how much do we get here? SPED for part 2, calculate price level demand at equilibrium. Okay, so our B component QD equals 100 minus 2P. So minus 2 is the B component, minus 2. Equilibrium price is 26. Equilibrium quantity is how much? 48. So you guys remember, you give the PED there as a minus value. Yes, you can ignore and give, but given that they are giving 4 marks for this, I'm sure they will be giving at least 1 mark to see whether you are putting the minus figure or not, right? So it's minus 1.0. Remember, PD is always minus, therefore you can ignore the minus. Yes, but I'm saying the correct answer is a minus, no. So given that they're giving 4 marks here, maybe they must be allocating 1 mark to see if the student properly puts the minus sign or not. If it's, let's say, a 1 mark or a 2 mark question, then they would have not allocated marks for that, but here they could have. You never know. Yeah, that. So 8 marks there. I think that's the easiest 8 marks you can ever get. And then the part 3. Suppose now the government has decided to grant a subsidy of 5 rupees per unit for the producers of this product. Calculate the market equilibrium price and the quantity of this product after the subsidy has granted. So I'll ask you a few questions. Can you, number 1, tell me what is the new supply equation after the subsidy? I'm not going to make it, guys. I've made this 100 times now. New supply equation after subsidy, QS equals A plus BP plus S. What is our equation? 120. How much do we get? QS equals 50, minus 15 plus 3P. Yeah, okay. So minus 15 plus 3P. Yeah, 3P. Okay, so then what is our new equilibrium price and quantity? So what do? You find the demand. QD equals 100 minus 2P equals minus 15 plus 3P. So how much do we get as new equilibrium price and quantity? New equilibrium price equals new equilibrium 23. So price equals rupees 23 and the quantity is equal to 54. Okay, so rupees 23 and then you can say quantity. Okay, these are things that are going fast because we have done this, right, over and over again. Okay, then that is done. Then they are saying, okay, calculate the market equilibrium price and the quantity of this product. Done. Compare the economic surplus before and after subsidy. Now this is a little bit of a tricky question. Okay, so economic surplus before and after the subsidy. So I'll first draw this on the whiteboard, right? So give me the values when I ask for. Okay, we have curve, right? We have a demand curve. When I draw the diagram, it makes it much more clearer for you all. That is why I'm drawing a diagram. Okay, so there's a diagram like this. Okay, what is the equilibrium price before and quantity? 26 and something, no? 26 and 48. Okay, so equilibrium price before is 26. Equilibrium quantity before is 48, right? So it was this way. Then what happened? There was a subsidy. All of a sudden, there is a subsidy that the government put. So when the government put in that subsidy, supply curve shifts to the right. There's a rightward shift in the supply curve. So now you have a new equilibrium price, right? And you have a new equilibrium quantity. Okay, that is 23 and 54. So this is 23. This is 54. Done. Now they're asking you to compare economic surplus. So first of all, to get economic surplus, so we'll first calculate economic surplus before subsidy. So economic surplus before subsidy is equal to the consumer surplus before subsidy plus the producer surplus before the subsidy. So what is consumer surplus before subsidy? Which area? It is this area. So can you all get the area of this and tell me how much is that? Okay, so for that, first you have to find the maximum demand price, this price. So our QD equation, what is our QD equation? Our QD is 100 minus 2p minus 30 plus 3p. 100 minus 2p, right? Okay, so 100 minus 2p, so this is 50. Okay, so consumer surplus before, so I'll say the consumer surplus before is how much? Is equal to half into height is this 50 minus 26 into what is the quantity? 48. So how much do we get there? In total, we get 576. Okay, 576. Okay, then producer surplus before. Can you all give me the price over here? Producer surplus, the price over there. So this area you all know is producer surplus. This area, producer surplus before. Price is 10. Okay, so this price you all are saying is 10. And I'm hoping you all know how to get this 10 and 50 by now, right? So producer surplus is then equal to half into what is this thing? 26 minus 10 multiplied by the quantity, that is 48. How much do we get? 384. Okay, so rupees 384. So then what is economic surplus? Economic surplus is the addition of these two, 576 and 384. How much do we get in total? 960. Okay, so economic surplus is 960. Should I show how I got the 10? Yeah, so in your working, because anyway you have to calculate the 10 now. So show that working also in your paper. Okay, done. So now we have to find economic surplus after the subsidy, right? Economic surplus after the subsidy. So to find economic surplus after the subsidy, remember it is consumer surplus after the subsidy, producer surplus after the subsidy, and you remember you have to minus government subsidy expenditure, right? So in case you all did I tell you all this last class? So did I tell some other class? I can't remember who I told you all. Subsidy economic surplus. Was it you all? Told you all, right? Yeah. Okay. So when finding economic surplus after the subsidy, it's the consumer surplus after the subsidy, producer surplus after subsidy. Yes, I corrected in 2022, but even in a beyond the classroom, I remember on the board somewhere I drew. Yeah, okay, told before class, nice. So minus government subsidy expenditure. So how do we find this? Right, first to find the government subsidy expenditure, you draw a line upwards from your new equilibrium and you connect. So that box that you get, right, this box that you get is the government subsidy expenditure. Okay, so government is imposing a how many rupees subsidy? They are imposing a 5 rupees subsidy. So if this is 23, the upper boundary of this has to be 28. So they are putting a 5 rupees subsidy. Okay, so if that is 23, that has to be 28. So then what is consumer surplus after the subsidy? So consumer surplus after, I'll draw it in black. It is this entire part now. I'm hoping you all know the diagram well. This entire part now is consumer surplus after the subsidy. So if you're calculating that, that is equal to half into what is the height, that is 50 minus 23. Tax, do we have to add the tax revenue? Yes, we have to add the tax revenue. I told that last class. So in a tax, when you're finding economic surplus after the tax, right, then consumer surplus after tax, producer surplus after tax, plus the government tax revenue. Okay, so half into this into how much? 54, we get 729. Okay, so rupees 729. Okay, what is, this is consumer surplus, so I'll say CS. Okay, what is producer surplus, guys? So producer surplus, I'll show it in, let's say, this color. I'll show it in blue, right? So producer surplus after the subsidy is this area, right? Hoping you all know the areas. It's this area that I'm just drawn, right? So what do you do there? Producer surplus is equal to half into, oops, producer surplus is equal to half into what is the height, that is 28 minus 10 into what is this thing, 54. How much do we get? 486. Yeah. Okay, so rupees 486. And then what is the government subsidy expenditure? They're spending a 5 rupee subsidy for 54 units. So government subsidy expenditure, expenditure is equal to 5 into 50, sorry, 5 rupees into 54. Okay, so how much do we get here? 5 into 54, we get rupees 270. So now how do you find economic surplus after subsidy, guys? Economic surplus after subsidy, right, is equal to this, that is the consumer surplus 729 plus 486 minus 270. Must you get rupees 945. So that is the economic surplus after. So they're asking you for the change in economic surplus. The change in economic surplus is 960 minus 445 is it has decreased by, sorry, 445 minus 960. It has decreased by 15. So economic surplus decreased by 50. Isn't there times the economic surplus increase after subsidy? Economic surplus after subsidy will not really increase, it will actually decrease. Because why? The government expenditure, the government spending is much more than the benefit than the producer and the consumer gets. So always the economic surplus is decreasing. It's creating an inefficiency. Okay. Can we take as half into 50 minus 5 into 54? 50 minus 5, where do you get 5 into 54? 50 minus 5 means maximum demand price and non-supply price. Okay, so you're trying to find the entire economic surplus with one equation. Is that what you're trying to do, without finding consumer surplus and producer surplus separately? Yeah. I'm not very sure. Maybe yeah, you can get the same answer, but then when you're finding economic surplus after, when you're getting economic surplus after, you can't really get it. No, so don't really go there, because usually why, you will get marks for each of those subparts. You get marks to calculate the consumer surplus before subsidy, to calculate consumer surplus after subsidy. You will get 1 mark each. So if you directly go and put the economic surplus, sometimes they might cut marks there. So don't directly go and put there. Okay. How do I find the change? Guys, the change, so I find the previous economic surplus is 960. The new economic surplus is 945. So the new one is 945, previous is 960. So economic surplus has decreased by 15. Okay. So the party who is relatively inelastic gets the benefit of subsidy. Yes, more higher the inelasticity, higher the subsidy benefit. So in this part, so if you can see, right, who has got more subsidy benefit here? There was a price of 26, price increased. These people got a 2 rupee benefit, suppliers got a 2 rupee benefit, consumers got a 3 rupee benefit. You'll get that. So there was a subsidy, right? There was a subsidy in the market earlier. 26 rupees, the consumer paid 26, supplier got 26. Now after the subsidy, the supplier is getting 28. So he is getting a 2 rupee benefit, supplier, 2 rupees more. The consumer, he paid 26, but now he's paying only 23. So he's getting a 3 rupee benefit. So the consumer has got a more higher benefit than this. So the consumer is more inelastic. You know why? The supply is elastic. No? So supply is elastic here, making the what demand more comparatively inelastic. So higher the inelasticity, higher the tax benefit. So supply is getting a, sorry, consumer is getting a higher subsidy benefit. He is getting 3 rupee of the 5 rupees. The other fellow is getting only 2. They've not asked, but yeah. Okay, then you have that done, right? Economic surplus. And this question, now this question is a bit of a tricky question, and I think this is, now remember, in every question they'll have a little bit of a hard question. Now to understand this question a little, you need understanding from a lot of units. You need to know unit number 1, you need to have an understanding on unit number 4, right? There is like a combination. They say part 5, what can you conclude on the allocative efficiency of resource allocation in this market after the introduction of the subsidy? Guys, allocative efficiency is where, right, you remember marginal cost equals marginal benefit, price equals marginal cost equals marginal benefit. There's a story for allocative efficiency. But here, you know what happens, right? Now, if you look at this market, to supply, let's say 54 units, right? To supply 54 units, the consumers are getting it at a price of 23, right? But actually, the cost to supply this, the marginal cost of supplying one additional unit is more than 23, because the government is subsidizing a certain part. No? So the actual, if you look at it, the marginal cost of, somewhat producing these 54 units, you can say it's somewhere around 28 rupees, the marginal cost of producing this. But the price, okay, so if I want to summarize, allocative efficiency, allocative, if now this is it's a tricky question. You need to have understanding on 1, 3, and 4, right? So allocative efficiency, marginal cost should equal to marginal benefit, right? And then marginal benefit, how do you measure it? Using the price. But here, what happens in a situation when the subsidy is given, right? The marginal cost is greater than the price paid in the market. So for example, if you just, and you don't have to go into that detail, I don't think they will question you at this detail. It's a little bit of a tricky question, right? So if you look at this quantity, at the quantity 54, the consumers are paying a price of 23, but the marginal cost of producing this unit, right? The additional cost of producing it would have been somewhere around 28. So the marginal cost is greater than price. So there is no allocative efficiency there. There is allocative inefficiency. So that is what you have to, right? The marginal cost is greater than the price here. Yeah, you don't have to go into that detail. It's not really needed at your level. I don't know why they included this here. So what can you conclude on allocative efficiency on resource allocation? Okay, let me see what exactly is the answer saying. This is the 2019 old paper, no? 2019 new syllabus. Okay, old syllabus, the question paper. Okay, so this is what the answer is saying as well, right? So here they're saying, after the introduction of a subsidy in this market, marginal cost of production exceeds the marginal benefit. Marginal cost of production in the market is higher than the price. So marginal price and marginal benefit, you can substitute for each other. So since marginal cost is greater than price in this market, there is excess production, okay, overproduction, and due to the subsidy, market is in allocative inefficiency due to the subsidy, and price is not equal to marginal cost and marginal benefit. So this is what you have to write. So maybe I'll get a screenshot of this and put it on the board, but it's not, I think, at your level. I don't know. I've not seen a question like this before. I think at your level, it's a bit too much, since they have not really gone into that depth in your syllabus. Okay, are you somewhat okay? Yes, no, or completely blank? Okay, so again, remember, okay, to explain this again, guys, this question, right, don't overthink it. This question, you need to know unit number 1, what allocative efficiency is. Then you need to know unit number 3. You need to know unit number 4, right, where you this thing, there is a marginal cost and there is different things. So here what they are saying is, when you have a subsidy, right, the marginal cost is greater than the marginal benefit. Okay, so they say marginal cost of production in this market is higher than the price. So marginal benefit and price is equal. No, that I'm hoping you all know from unit number 1. So since the marginal cost is greater, but the benefit that people are getting is less, that is the price. How do you measure the benefit people are getting? Now, for example, let's say you're paying 1,800 class fees, and let's say you're joining my class. That means, right, you're getting a benefit of 1,800. So price is equal to marginal benefit. So when the marginal cost is higher, you can say that there is excess production, overproduction. People don't want much, but you're producing more, okay, due to the subsidy. Therefore, the market is in allocative inefficiency due to the subsidy. Where do you have allocative efficiency? When the marginal cost is equal to the marginal benefit. But here it doesn't happen that way, right? You're overproducing it, right? Things like that. And this also, you can even go into you might need a little bit knowledge on unit number 8 also, on externalities and things like that. Okay, someone screenshot on the group. Screenshot of which one do you want? Screenshot of this, the diagram. Can someone put this on the group? Screenshot. Can you all text on the group? Yeah, no? I'll not disable that. Okay, so we have 2 more papers to go. We'll finish that faster and then we'll move on to things faster, guys. So I ideally want to, I don't know, I don't think if I will be able to finish this by March, but ideally I wanted to finish this by March because I'll be very, very caught up when I start the fast track, but we'll see. We'll try to do our best. We'll see what we can do. Okay. Okay, this is done. Moving to the next paper. Yeah, guys, I'm just telling you all, right? There can be questions that is hard for you, right? There are questions that would have been hard for me as well, right? Remember, you don't have to get 100 out of 100 to get an A, right? Even if you certainly manage your thing and, be smart enough to at least score, let's say around 17, 18, you still can get a really good A, right? So there can be questions that people don't know. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. Okay. Done. Then moving on to the next paper. Okay. Yeah, this is the 2019 A levels, right? 1 year before. So there are 2 questions in this, right? So we'll go through the questions faster. Okay, what factors influence market demand for a normal good, guys? I'm not going to talk about that. Skipped. Explain why a reduction in the price of a normal good does not increase the demand for that good. What do you all think the answer is? Reduction in the price of a normal good does not increase the demand for that good. Why? Screenshot 2018 paper. I'll send that after class. Why is this? Why does the reduction of a price of a normal good does not increase the demand for the good? Guys, it doesn't increase the demand for the good. It increases the quantity demand. They're testing that, right? Reduction in the price will not increase demand. It will increase quantity demand. So that is what they're testing. Whether you know the difference between change in demand and change in quantity demand. So when the price of a good reduces, demand will not increase. No, the demand curve will not shift to the right. What will happen? The quantity demand will only increase. So that is what you have to write there for 2 marks. Okay, hoping that part is fine. Okay. Then they're asking you explain why quantity demand of good decreases as its price increase. What do you have to explain here? Explain why the quantity demand. What do you explain in this answer? What do you have to write? Quantity demand of good decreases as its price increase. Exactly. You talk about the price effect, the law of demand, the income effect, and the substitution effect, right? So I'm hoping you all are good with that now. So I'm not going to teach you income effect, substitution effect. I taught this last class as well, right? What income effect is, what substitution effect is. I put numbers on the board and I showed you that income effect, income doesn't change. What happens? Substitution effect, what happens, right? You simply have to say that this happens because of the law of demand. The reasons for that is the substitution effect, income effect, and you explain the substitution effect and the income effect. Okay, done. So part 3, market demand and supply equations for a particular product are given below. Done. Calculate economic surplus at market equilibrium. Can you do that faster? They've given this and this. So guys, you all can't skip steps. So ideally what you have to do is first you have to find the equilibrium price and quantity, right? So go little by little. Don't try to skip a lot of steps. Okay, so demand, you have a supply. So equilibrium price, how much do you all get? Price is 14. Okay. Quantity is 18. Okay, 18. Now can you find economic surplus? This area is consumer surplus. This area is producer surplus. So find the area. So for that, first you have to find this price, then you have to find this price. So how much is this price? Maximum demand price is 20, no? 20. And the other one. So this is 20. How much is the minimum supply price? That is 5. Okay, so this is 5. So now simple thing, you calculate consumer surplus, you calculate producer surplus, you add the two together. Okay, so going with your answers, consumer surplus, how much you all get, guys? CS Okay, economic surplus is 135. How much is consumer surplus? 54. Okay, so consumer surplus is 54. Producer surplus is 81. You add the two together, you get economic surplus, that is equal to 135. So simple calculation that you have to do, where you get 4 marks. Okay. Then they ask, briefly describe the factors influencing price elasticity of supply. They ask you to briefly describe now. Okay, so price elasticity of supply. What are the factors that affect PES? Hmm? Factors affecting PES. Okay, factor mobility of the factors of production. Yeah, factor mobility. So that is how well can you, how easily can you shift the good, shift the factors of production. Okay, storage. So factor mobility. Okay, so what do you have to write now? You can't just write factor mobility here. So first you write something called factor mobility. Then you say factor mobility is, you know, how easily can you switch the factors of production from one good to another good. So if the factor mobility is high, if you can easily switch the goods from one good to another good, then it becomes elastic. You can easily change the supply. But if there is low factor mobility, right, then it is inelastic. So you have to write this in your words, right? Don't write points like this. I'm explaining. Then you can talk about the ability to store, right? Ability to store the good. Point number 2. So that is whether the good is a perishable good or not. Okay, the ability to store. So if you can store, right? You can store. That means it's not perishable, non-perishable. You can store. That means high factor mobility means that you can easily change your factors of production. You can easily switch. So it's elastic then. Okay. See, now when the price of one good increases, if there is high levels of factor mobility, that means soon you can take the factors of production from one industry, put it to the other industry. So if you, therefore it's elastic. Okay. So ability to store. If you can store, it becomes what? If you can store, the good becomes elastic, right? If you cannot store, right, if you can't store, then you have no option, you have to put the good out, then it becomes inelastic, right? So those 2 points. Apart from that, what else can you write? You can talk about the time period to adjust supply, right? So you can say in the short run, yeah, nature of production factors is factor mobility. So if they have similar production factors or similar types of inputs, then there is high levels of factor mobility. So all of that you can combine into point number 1. So in the short run, right, time period to adjust supply. In the short run, you can call it inelastic. You can't really change. In the long run, you can easily change your supply, right? Becomes elastic. Okay, apart from this, okay, nature of the good also can come into play. Elastic, yeah, spare capacity. If there is spare capacity, yeah, that is also a good point. Spare capacity, if there is elastic, if there is no, can't we write price of the product, cost of production? No, they are asking you for factors include price, elasticity of supply, not price of supply. Advertising, does advertising really come? I've not seen advertising. I don't think you can't try to put advertising there. Technology, guys, technology, those stuff and all come under factors affecting supply, not price elasticity of supply, right? So price elasticity of supply are these. Price factors affecting supply, you can say technology, you know, things there. What is thrifty nature? Where do you find that word from? Nature of the good. As nature of the good, if the good is, you know, some sort of, let's say, an agricultural good, right, then you can't really increase, right? So then it becomes inelastic. Okay, if the good is, let's say, a manufacturing good, right, then you can easily, let's say, increase the supply and you can increase. So inelastic. And if it is this, if it is manufacturing, then it is elastic. What about marginal cost? I don't think you really put marginal cost. I don't know. Where, as far as I've studied and as far as I've known, you don't really put marginal cost here. Maybe there is a connection, but these are the four main points that you have to include when they say factors affecting PES. So, and you have to explain the story. Is any tute, right? Go check whatever tute that you studied. These things should be there under price elasticity of supply, right? In whatever note, it would say factors affecting price elasticity of supply, and they will give you a certain factors. And then they will say based on this it is elastic, based on this it is inelastic. That is what you have to write and explain here. Okay. So it's a simple question, nothing to let's say overthink. Shape no. Okay, hoping that's okay. Then moving on to question 5. Question 5 says, suppose the average monthly income of a consumer rises from 35 to 45 and the quantity of bread consumed by the consumer is in the same month falls from 30 to 20. What is the income elasticity of demand for bread for this consumer? Is bread a normal or an inferior good under this situation? Easy calculation, no? First time they're giving a YED calculation in part 2. So how do you calculate, guys? How do you calculate YED? YED is equal to change in income, change in quantity demand divided by the change in income, and then if you want, you can get the average income or you can get the normal income that was there, right? So yeah, then you can say the income, right? Income, guys, income, if you want, you can remember both the methods are correct. You can either get average income or you can get the initial income. Both of it will be okay. So give me a second. Income divided by the quantity demand. So what values do you have to put in? The change in quantity demand, this is for the fifth question. The change in quantity demand is how much? Quantity demand is going from 35,000 to 45,000. So the change in quantity demand is 10,000, right? So 10,000. Change in income, sorry, change in quantity demand is minus 10, sorry. Yours, what is start? Quantity demand is going from 30 to 20. So it's a minus 10. Change in income is a plus 10,000, right? And then what can you do here? In income, you can either put the initial income or you can put the average income. Both will give you the same thing. So we'll put the, okay, let's say we put, okay, if you put average income, guys, 35,000 plus 45,000 divided by 2, you should put 40,000. Or else you can put the initial income, right? So 35,000 and then the initial demand is 30. So 35,000 and then 30. Or else you can put the average, right? Even that is correct. So for 30, or else you can put 40,000 and 25. Okay, when you calculate what do you get as an answer? Whatever method you use, how much do we get as an answer for income elasticity of demand? Minus 1.6. Yes, okay. So then if YED is minus, what type of good is it? Because remember, you will get a minus. Be careful because based on the minus sign and the plus sign, your answer will differ, right? So it's a minus 1.6, right? The answer you get is minus 1.6. So minus 1.6, what type of good is it? It's an inferior good. So that is what you have to do. That is bread a normal or inferior good. It's an inferior good. You can even take the averages there, no problem, but you will still get a minus answer. Okay. Okay, done with that. 3 more questions to go. Now see, now the new syllabus has 2 questions, right? From these units. Unit 2, there is 1. Unit 3, there is 1. Okay. Okay. Mention 4 main factors influencing change in supply. Factors influencing a change in supply. So here you all can write those things. What you all told me earlier. Technology, cost of inputs, prices of related goods, consumers. Having 2 questions is good or bad? I think it's good. It's easy. Right? You simply have to write, guys, the factors affecting supply. Then you have an interesting question. Now, remember I told you when you have 2 questions, now that the syllabus has changed and unit 2 and 3 is 2 units. Earlier in the syllabus, 2 and 3 was 1 unit. That is why early in syllabus you only had one question. But now you have two questions. Now the good side is if you're good at it, it's good. But the bad side is now from unit number 3, they ask theory questions. Earlier unit number 3, taxes, subsidies, they only ask a calculation. But now if you see here, right, if you look at the questions here, it's not that easy. So this question, right, the answer scheme has directly come from a internet copy paste, right? That is why I tell you all to read things on the internet also, if possible. And then this, what measures has the government taken to stabilize the price of agricultural commodities? Now, this first part is okay. Explain why prices of primary products such as agricultural crops are often unstable in a market. Even the answer scheme, I copied the original answer scheme answer, but even that is not that good. It's a direct copy paste from the internet. So I just copied and pasted it because I didn't want to spend time typing. So they're asking you, the question is asking you, why is the prices of primary products like agricultural goods always unstable? That means why is it always increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing? So what are the reasons why is it increasing, decreasing, right? So you have certain reasons. So one reason they say that it is because of inelastic demand. Now just basically I'll show you, right? I'll show you this. Now what is that? No, okay. So see, right, look at this situation. When you have inelastic demand, right, when your demand is inelastic, that means you have a demand like this, right, and you have supply. So now see, even when, now this is the equilibrium price, no? Now this is the equilibrium price. Let's say this is the equilibrium price for coconut. So now when you have an inelastic demand and when the when the supply changes, so let's say there is a small change in supply, let's say supply decreases. So when there is a small change in supply, right, supply changes by a small amount. See the equilibrium quantity, it's a very small change, right, very small change. But the price, there is a huge change in the price. So when you have inelastic demand, so when supply changes, even if it increases or decreases, the price changes by a greater proportion. There is a huge change in the price here when you have inelastic demand. Okay, so this is what they say. Inelastic demand, they say demand for most primary products are relatively price inelastic. If the price of tea falls, there will be a smaller percentage rise in demand. This is because there are few close substitute. Also, tea accounts for a small percentage of income and therefore change in price doesn't make much difference for overall demand. Food is also a necessity. Therefore, food is inelastic. Now they say since demand and supply are inelastic, a change in supply can cause a significant change in price. That is what I just drawn and explained. Now, if you have an elastic demand curve, you change the supply a little and see the price doesn't change much. But when you have an inelastic demand curve and you change the supply, price changes a lot. So price is fluctuating there. So that is one reason why it is fluctuating. Okay, so they have given that. And then the second reason they have told is that inelastic supply. So inelastic supply, they have said, now when you look at agricultural products, guys, tea, rubber, coconut, any of these, right? When there is a shortage or when there is, let's say too much of the good, right, you can't change your supply now. Now if you want to, let's say, increase the supply of, let's say, something like rubber, it would take years, no, for you to, grow that rubber entire tree, and to take, let's say 3 to 5 years for you to start growing and for you to maybe getting results out of it. So therefore, even when, let's say, there is a shortage or anything, you can't react by changing your supply. Now for example, let's say there is a shortage of rubber in the market, right? Shortage of rubber. So when there is a shortage of rubber, ideally what you should do, the correct measure is you have to increase the supply of rubber. But since rubber is inelastic, you can't increase the supply. What you will do in order to solve that shortage, you will increase the price. The price will be very much high. So when you increase the price there, then this shortage is sorted. When the price increases, the demand will fall. So that is how they solve it. So it is again a bit of a complex area. Just have a good understanding. Again, then they say natural factors like weather and things like that. So again, when there is bad weather, when there is, sometimes, there can be diseases, right? So let's say now even these days, crops, right, you have these elephants coming and vandalizing these crops, right? You have different things like that. So when, let's say, an elephant comes and, let's say, vandalizes the entire portion of crops that is there, so the amount of crops that comes out to the market is very much less. So it comes at a very high price. So that means the price is increasing, decreasing. There is a huge, all of a sudden, today's price of, let's say, price is, let's say, 60 rupees a kilogram. Let's say these days all the elephants are coming and destroying the thing. Maybe next month when the rice is coming out, the price of that rice has increased. So there is a huge fluctuation there. And then they are saying agricultural goods are non-perishable. You can't store these agricultural goods and keep, right? So for example, now rice you can, but let's say other things, right? So let's say tomatoes, to any other agricultural good, you can't store it for a long time and keep. So again, because of that, again prices can increase and decrease because of the issue there. Okay, so that is what they are asking. So now these two questions are somewhat connected. The answer scheme is there, guys. Read through, right? They're asking, explain why the prices of primary products such as agricultural crops are often unstable. Unstable in the sense here means it is increasing, decreasing, right? It's a little bit of a complex area. Take some time and read through. You all will definitely understand it. Okay. And then they're asking the next part, what measures could be taken by the government to stabilize this price now, right? So answer, guys, I'll send the original answer scheme on the textbook, on the group. Okay. So third part, they're saying, okay, now they're saying, okay, agricultural products prices are, increasing, decreasing, right? Why are they increasing? The third part they're asking, now what has the government done to make sure these agricultural crops are always, let's say, what measures can they take to stabilize this price? So I'll show you what is there in the answer scheme. New syllabus. Okay, here. So now this is where they're testing your theory there. Here, what has the government done to stabilize this? They have, they have had guaranteed prices, right? They have had deficiency payment systems. They have had minimum prices. They have had quotas. They have put incentive payments for cultivating land. They've had buffer stock, right? They've had export subsidies. They've had given more market information, right? So any of this, you would have got your mark. So what has the government done? That. Why is the price fluctuating? Now, usually in your syllabus, we don't really study why is the price fluctuating. We study what the government does. We study guaranteed prices, deficiency payment, minimum prices, all of that we study, but we don't really study why it happened. So this is a little bit of a tricky question there. So they're asking you why are the prices unstable? In the second part, they're asking you what are the measures. The measures are the ones that what we have studied. So measures in the sense you can say, I'll send this answer scheme as well, right? These points, sorry, not this. Which one? Okay, this one. So these are the measures: the guaranteed price, the deficiency payment, the minimum prices, production quotas, right? All of that are the measures that the government has taken. Okay. Okay, that is that. So that is, I think those two were somewhat of hard questions, not easy questions, not questions that students would have thought of the first place. Even let's say, even if I was writing for A levels, I would have gone and bluffed a little in these two questions. I would have not known the exact answer, right? So then this thing. Okay, tax calculation, guys. You all can do this, right? You want me to do the tax question? Shall we skip this? Can find, right? There is a demand equation, there is a supply equation. They're asking, assume the government has imposed a tax of 6 rupees, right, of production. Okay, what price do buyers pay for the good after tax? Can you all tell me what is the equilibrium price after the tax? I just give you all the answer. I'm not going to explain, guys. Simple things. Equilibrium price after tax, those who did. How much do we get? Rupees. Okay, quantity is 54. Price is 50. Yeah, so equilibrium price, going with your answers, 56 or 54. I know I'm getting different answers. 54. Price is okay, 54 or 50. Okay, what is the new supply equation? The new supply equation after tax, first thing, after this tax. So QS equals minus 100 plus 4P. There's a tax of 6 rupees. What is the new supply equation? The supply equation after tax, minus 124 plus 4P. Okay, minus 124 plus 4P. Then when you equate minus 124 plus 4p with 200 minus 2p. How much do you get as the equilibrium price? They're asking for that. They're asking what price do buyers pay for the good after tax? That is the equilibrium price. 56, 54. Okay, guys. I'm getting a lot of 56 and a lot of 54s. Okay, so okay, 124 minus, okay, so 324 divided by 6. 54, 54.33. Yeah. Okay, so equilibrium price is then 54. So they're asking what is the price the government buyers will receive for the good? So buyers will pay 54 rupees. And how much is the government revenue? Government revenue, how do you find? That is a new equilibrium quantity. What is the equilibrium quantity? New equilibrium quantity multiplied by the unit tax. So unit tax is 6 rupees. 6 rupees multiplied by, what is the quantity? How much do we get as a quantity? Quantity is 92. So then that is 6 into 92. How much do we get? 552. So that is the government tax. Simple questions, guys. I'm hoping you all are expert by now in this area, right? In taxes and subsidies and things like that. Okay. Okay. So then we'll move on to the last paper, right? The last paper, that is the latest paper, the 2020 paper. So I've got a few answers from the internet because I didn't want to type it, right? So we'll discuss. We have 2 more questions and then we're done with this unit. Question number 2 is actually very, very easy, right? So what is the difference between demand and quantity demand? You know that everyone got this wrong. The one of the teacher who so teacher who taught me, right? He had a chat with whoever who is marking, right? Most students have got this wrong. You know where students went wrong. They're not asking for change in demand and change in quantity demand here. They're asking you what is the difference between demand and quantity demanded. They're not asking you what is the difference between change in demand and change in quantity. Change in demand and change in quantity demand, you say change in quantity demand is when the price of the good changes. There is a change. Change in demand, you say when other factors are changing, it changes. That is what everyone has gone and written. What is the difference between this change in demand and change? No, not change in demand and quantity demand. Anyone? What do you write here? Please, the main point that you have to write here is demand is the overall relationship, right? Demand is the overall relationship between price and quantity, right? So at various different prices, what are the things that you have? But what is quantity demand? Quantity demand is one specific point in the demand curve. What is demand? Demand shows the overall relationship between price and demand shows the overall. You can say with everything, right? Demand. Okay, if I have to define this, you can say demand is the various quantities that people are going to buy at different prices. You know, income levels, this thing. You can say every. That's the overall relationship. But what is quantity demand? Quantity demand is at a given point of price, right? At a given price, how much are people willing to buy? So the entire thing is demand, but quantity demand is one specific point, right? So demand is at any price, right? The overall relationship, you have to write that quantity demand is one particular point at one particular price. What is the quantity demand? That is what we call quantity demand. Okay. So that is what you have to write. Once the original marking scheme comes, I'll give you all the full comprehensive answer. But for now, just remember that is what you write. Fine. Set. Issues. Okay. Hoping that's fine. Okay. Okay. To repeat it again, guys, they're asking you what is the difference between demand and quantity demand. So what is demand? You start with the definition. Can we say the slope is demand at a specific point the demand curve is quantity demand? Yeah, you can talk about that also if you want. So you can say demand talks about the overall relationship between price and let's say quantity demanded. right? Or say demand talks about the overall relationship, or it talks about the behavior between uh, different prices and the quantities that people are willing to buy at those different prices. But then what is quantity demand? Quantity demand is one specific point. It's not the overall relationship. Quantity demand is one specific point at one particular price. Let's say at the price of 50, how much are consumers willing to buy? That is what quantity demanded means. So demand is the overall relationship. Quantity demand is one particular point only. So mostly theories have been questioned. Yeah, there are theory and there is a small sum also though. There is a 10 mark sum. Yeah. Okay, so that is what you write the first part. The second part they ask you define normal, inferior, and luxury good using the concept of income elasticity of demand. Easy thing to guys. So you say normal good is where, right? When the income increases, where it has a positive relationship between what? Positive relationship between uh income and quantity demand or demand, right? So it has a positive YED. So normal goods have a positive income elasticity of demand. You write that. Then you say inferior good. Inferior good has what? Has a negative YED. That is, in case income increases, the demand will fall, or when the demand falls, income would increase. Should you say real income? No, you don't have to put real income. You can talk about nominal income. Here we are talking about nominal income. Income effect. This is not income effect. No, this is income elasticity. In income elasticity, it's the actual income that is changing, not the real income that is changing. So actual income changes, real income will also change. But you can talk about the actual income. Okay. So then you talk about inferior goods, say it has a negative YED and all of that. Then you talk about a luxury good. So you will get 1 mark for talking about each. So 3 marks. So 1 mark for talking about each. So luxury good, you can say it's it also has a positive relationship with income. And in a luxury good, you can say the YED is greater than 1. So if the price increases, the people would increase their, sorry, if the income increases, people would increase their demand in a higher proportion. That is YED greater than 1. So that is what you're right. Shape confused? No questions? Because we're going faster because it's the last class and we've discussed things before. Anyone questions? No. Okay, so if there's no questions, we'll move on to the third part. Third part is talking about name 3 non-price rationing methods used in allocation of goods in an economy. Can you all name non-price rationing methods? We study this under unit number 3. Okay, queuing. So you can talk about a queuing method. Guys, normal good here means positive relationship between income and demand. So queuing, you can talk about non-price rationing. So you can talk about rationing through bribes. You can talk about ration cards, right? All of that will make sense. Okay, give me a second. Okay. So for the third part, what do you have to write? You can write number 1, queuing system, right? Number 2, you can write, let's say, coupons. They maybe number 3, you can say coupling with other goods and selling. Number 3, you can maybe 4, you can say maybe the use of black market prices. So all of that are non-price rationing methods will come in unit number 3. Usually you have this somewhere around in maximum price. Under maximum prices, you can have that. Black market prices will emerge, goods can be imported. Don't really go into that level. Don't talk about the maximum price. They're not saying maximum price, they're simply asking non-price rationing techniques. That means without having a price, how can you allocate goods? So without having a price, how can you allocate goods? Number 1 is a queuing system, right? Number 2, you can talk about, having, let's say, ration cards. You can allocate it that way. Then maybe you can sometimes even maybe, I'm not very sure, maybe even black market prices would have not been an answer, because even that is a price method, no? So apart from that, then you can say selling together with other goods. You combine and sell with another good, right? You can talk about things like that. Okay, so 3 points of that is more than enough. Distributing with bribes, yeah, you can talk about bribing. It's not really a price, no? Yeah, we can talk about that. Okay. Okay, part 4. In a small town, the market for bread is represented by the following demand and supply equation. Easy one. Okay, can you all give me answers? The equilibrium, price and quantity. How much do you all get? Price. Okay, I'm getting different answers. Price 50, quantity 110. Yes. Price is 50, quantity is 110, quantity is 60. Yes, how much is the quantity? Okay, quantity is 60. Okay, so price 60, quantity, sorry, price is 50, quantity is 60. Okay, let me try to make this bigger. Okay, so that is the answer for part 1. Part 2, they're asking calculate total surplus. Guys, total surplus, they're asking for economic surplus. So can you all calculate that? And how much do we get? 2,700. Consumer surplus and producer surplus. So you simply, right, you know the normal thing, no? Right, you have equilibrium price, that is 50. Right, this is 50. Equilibrium quantity over here is 60. So you have to find this area and you have to find this area and add them together. Okay, so going with your answers, consumer surplus is 1,800. This is 900. Okay, so consumer surplus, going with your answer, this is 1,800. And you are saying producer surplus is 900. So then economic surplus is equal to 1,008 plus 900. Economic surplus is then equal to 2,700, right? Not gonna do and show. I'm hoping you all are good with that. Then they're saying calculate price last year demand at bread at the price of 60. So at the price of 60, what is the county demand first? So PD equals, okay, so here you have QD equals minus P. So minus P means minus 1P. So the P part is 1, B part, multiplied by what is the price? Always the change in economic surplus will be equal to deadweight loss. Yeah, most probably yes. Okay, price is at the price of 60 now. So at the price of 60, what is the quantity, guys? Quantity is 50 there. 15 minutes? Okay. So you do this and then you calculate PED. So you get PED minus 1.2. So that is that. Calculate price level. So you will get 2 marks for finding this quantity of 50, 2 marks for finding this answer. Yeah, simple calculation. So if you get a calculation like this is the easy 10 marks. This is what your previous batch did, right? So here again, if you look at this question, maybe the first question was a little tricky, right? Change demand and quantity demand, instead of asking change in demand, change in quantity demand, they would have made that tricky. But see, the other parts are very easy, right? Define normal, inferior, luxury goods. You have done more and more, right? Then non-price rationing methods, again very easy. Again this calculation 10 marks, very much easy. You need to write the equation of PED. Yes, they're giving you 4 marks in. If they're giving you 4 marks, yes, you have to write the equation for PED. So you start with the equation and then you go along. Okay, how did you get quantity as 50? Quantity as 50, I didn't get, you all told me. So quantity, how do you get as 50? So what you do is you QD equals 110 minus 5 minus P, no? So instead of P, you put the price as 60. You put 60 here, you substitute 60, then you can get this as 50, right? So 110 minus 60 is equal to 50. You substitute and get, okay? Hoping that is fine. Okay. Then coming into the last question. Okay, this had a few interesting questions. One, they're asking to distinguish between a price ceiling and price floor. Guys, when they say distinguish between price ceiling, price floor, don't draw a table, right? You have to explain using sentences. Okay, but I have put a table here because this is what I found on the internet to give you all the points there. But whatever said and done, you have to draw it using a table. So one, you can say a price ceiling is where, right, is set when you think, let's say the price is too unfair to the consumer. So if the government feels that the price is unfair to the consumer, in order to support the consumer, government sets a price ceiling which is below the equilibrium price. Then for a price floor, you can say the government sets a price floor when they feel it is unfair for the producer and they set it above the equilibrium price. So then you can say due to a price ceiling, there is a shortage in the market, or in other words, you can say there is a excess demand situation, and due to a price flow there is a surplus or an excess supply. Yes, you can draw the graph also if you want to. Okay, but idea you should have points. Then again, if you look at the advantages, the disadvantages, you can say because of a price ceiling there can be, you know, emergence of black market prices, right? Then you can talk about things like that. So I've just put in some points, right? I've just got one internet and put it. It makes sense. So I can also get a screenshot if you all want to. You all know the basic differences, right? Price ceiling and price flow. I don't think that's a big thing now, right? So all what you have to do is distinguish that, show that a price ceiling and the price what flow is different. So you can also draw the graph. Maybe they give you 1 mark to draw the graph also. So draw the graph also and show the difference between that. Is that okay? Yes, price ceiling and price flow. Questions, anyone? Fine. Okay. So then the second part of it, they're asking, why does a price ceiling create an excess demand for a good? When you answer using a diagram. Okay, remember, you don't have to overthink this. Yeah, you can draw the two graphs separately in this and show, right? But don't draw a table, draw it in a paragraph. Okay. So why does a price ceiling create an excess demand? Guys, you should say that when there is a price ceiling, the price ceiling is set at a price below the equilibrium price. So when a price ceiling is set below the equilibrium price, at this price, right, consumers are willing to buy a higher quantity, right? So you draw this diagram and you say, for example, if the price ceiling is set, so for effective price ceiling, you have to draw what? Set the price below the equilibrium. When you set the price below equilibrium, right, the consumers are motivated to buy a higher quantity because the price is less, and similarly suppliers are now demotivated and are only willing to supply a lesser quantity. Because of this, there is a excess demand that is created of this much of units. So this diagram you draw and you explain whatever that I just said. That is why in a, they say, why does price ceiling create an excess demand? Okay, so this table, okay, this is the table. Okay, if I'm to repeat it, guys, they're asking you, why does a price ceiling create an excess demand, right? Explain your answer using a diagram. So what do? You draw the diagram. You draw a price ceiling diagram, right? You will get 2 marks for this diagram. And then what you have to do, you say, when the price ceiling is set below the equilibrium price, consumers are, since the price is low, the consumers are more encouraged to buy more units. So the demand increases, coin demand increases. While when the price is set below the equilibrium at a lower price, suppliers are demotivated. Suppliers would supply a lesser amount. So when this happens, right, when consumers are willing to buy more and suppliers are only willing to supply less, there is a situation of excess demand that happens. So you can do that. Should we explain the law of demand for the second part? Not really. You don't have to go into that detail. You can talk about the law of demand, because the law of demand, because price decreases, quantity demand increases. And you can talk about the law of supply, because price decreases, quantity supply decreases. You don't have to go in detail about what the law of demand and what the law of supply is. Okay. Okay. Then the third one. Third one is saying, why does the producer subsidy create a dead weight loss? Illustrate your answer using an appropriate diagram. I don't know. I don't know how your teacher would have explained this to you, but I remember for my revision class, when I was teaching this deadweight loss concept, I showed you how does the deadweight loss come. So to calculate deadweight loss, I show you how does consumer surplus change, how does producer surplus change, and then only I get something called a deadweight loss. I show the change in consumer surplus, change in producer surplus, and deadweight loss. So I'll give you the answer that I got. This shows a simple answer, right? So the again got from the internet, right? I didn't type it, was too lazy to type. Okay, so here they say, now if you look at this diagram, right, because of a subsidy that comes in, what happens? Because total surplus in a market is lower under a subsidy than in a free market. Now what happens here? If you look at a subsidy situation, when there is a subsidy that comes in, what happens? There is a new, I'll draw the subsidy curve also here. Now see, let's say this was the diagram and now there was a subsidy. So because of subsidy, let's say there is a new supply curve. The supply curve has shifted. So now if you look at, they're asking you why is there a creation of deadweight loss? To analyze or to answer that question or to figure out why there is a deadweight loss, you have to compare consumer surplus, the total economic surplus, guys. So before the subsidy, the surpluses were this, no, consumer surplus was A and B, producer surplus was C and D, right? So you got this. Consumer surplus, I put the answer A and B, producer surplus was C and D. Now after this subsidy, what happened? Consumer surplus increased. It became this entire part. So A, B, C, F and G. That is what I have mentioned there. Producer surplus also increased to D, C, B and E. So this entire part became producer surplus. So before the subsidy, this was the total economic surplus, right? The total surplus for the country was this much for the entire economy. But after the subsidy, now when there is a, right, this is not government revenue, this is government expenditure, right? After the subsidy, there is a government expenditure of this much. So remember I said, when you're calculating economic surplus after the subsidy, you have to remove the government's expenditure. So then what we do, we remove the government's expenditure minus this area, and then you end up with these letters. Okay, these letters you don't really have to figure. So if you can plus and minus these, you can end up with these letters, but you don't really have to show it with the letters. But what is the idea? Why is there a creation of deadweight loss, guys? Is because after the subsidy, right, the amount spent. So if you see, economic inefficiency is created by a subsidy because it costs the government more to enact a subsidy than the subsidy creates additional benefits. So for example, right, now here, okay, I'll give in letters here. Okay, I'll explain the story from the beginning. Let's say this is, can you all give me a letter? Let's say this is I. Okay. Okay, can you all give me answers for this? The change in consumer surplus. What are the letters after the before the subsidy and after the change in consumer surplus? Consumer surplus is increasing. It's increasing by which distance? What are the letters? The change in consumer surplus. After this subsidy, there is a change of C, F, and G. No, so consumer is getting a plus C, they're getting a plus F, and they're getting a plus G. What is the change in producer surplus? Change in producer surplus. Producer is getting an additional B plus B and he's getting a plus E. What is the government expenditure? Government expenditure here. Government is spending B, right? A minus B. They're spending a minus E. They're spending a minus I. They're spending a G. They're spending a F. And they're spending a C. Do you get that part? The change in consumer surplus, change in producer surplus, and the government. Now, because of the subsidy, government is spending some amount. Government is spending some amount, so it's minus. The consumers and the producers are getting some amount. So if you look at it, government is spending the B component, producer is getting it. Government is spending, let's say, a E component, producer is getting it. Government is spending a G component, consumer is getting it as his surplus. Government is spending an F, consumer is getting it. Government spending a C, consumer is getting it. But this part, right, this I that the government is spending, no one is getting it. So the cost to the government is more. The cost to the government is much higher than the benefit received to the consumer and the producer. The benefit received to the consumer is only C, F, and G. The benefit received to the producer is only B and E. But the cost to the government is B, E, C, F, G, and I. So the I part where the government is spending, but no one is getting. That is why it's creating a deadweight loss, because the cost to the government is much more than the benefit received by the consumer and the supplier. So that is the story that you have to explain. I'm hoping that whoever teacher who taught you would have taught you all that part. Shape, fine, no? Lost. You will be a little lost if you didn't really know, if you don't really know the concept of deadweight loss, you'll be a little lost. But if you know how do you get deadweight loss, I think you should be somewhat okay. Yeah. So guys, again, now deadweight loss, I know most of you all, when we say deadweight loss, what you do is you simply figure out, this is the triangle, this triangle is only deadweight loss. But how do you actually try to get it? Is you try to identify why do we call that deadweight loss. Just check with your teacher, right? They would have told you why is this deadweight loss. Then that would make more sense. How do you identify produce surplus after subsidy? Produce surplus after subsidy is this area, is this part. So now the producers are getting a price of PP. So produce surplus after subsidy increases to this part. Economic surplus in economic, what happens to the deadweight loss money? So deadweight loss money in the sense, so here, now these are again theories, right? This is not practical context, but here according to this theory we are saying that the money that is spent by the government, no one is getting the benefit of it. That is why we are saying it lost. You can't really connect this to practical context, because in the practical context you will not have a demand curve, you will not have a supply curve. So which area is consumer surplus after subsidy? Guys, these are basics. Consumer surplus is this area after subsidy. Right? Hoping you all are there with that. Okay. So that is the answer for that question. Why is there a deadweight loss? If you want, I'll send these pictures. If you want, someone can get a picture of this and put on the group. This thing also. Okay, I'll put this also. Okay, yeah, it's a little zoom. Okay, so you can put a screenshot on the group. So, but take some time and figure it out, guys. You have to spend some time to figure it out. Remember now, I'll just tell you all, right? For the people who are here, right? If you all are feeling that taxes, subsidies, this consumer surplus, deadweight loss, and things like that are confusing, trust me, these are some of the basic areas in the unit, right? Trust me, if you are struggling in this, you will definitely struggle in the units to come, especially money and banking, public economy, international trade will be hard. So if you are struggling right now, you know where you stand now, right? Please put in some extra effort and get things done, right? It's high time you put in there if you are lost. Okay, if whatever that I'm telling you now, I am explaining something with the thought that you all have some understanding. So whatever I'm explaining, let's say if it doesn't make sense, that means there is something that is lacking on your end. Because I feel someone who really knows this area, my explanation would have made perfect sense. I'm doing past papers, I'm not teaching you things for the first time. Right? So don't come to this class with the expectation of to learn things for the first time. You learn it and come, we'll brush it up here, right? So please put in some effort, because you all will find it hard towards the end if not. Okay, final question for the day. A company market has a demand function given in the equation QD equals 180 minus 2P, supply function QS equals minus 50 plus P. Calculate the amount of deadweight loss that would come from a price flow imposed in this market at 72 per unit. Remember, you can't directly calculate price, what you can't directly calculate, let's say, deadweight loss in this. There are certain steps that you have to follow. Okay, so how does it happen? What is the deadweight loss here? So company market, there is a price supply function, calculate the amount of deadweight loss that would result from a price flow imposed in this market at 72. Did anyone try it? No? Did the question? I didn't do it, honestly. Have you all done? You all get a proper answer for deadweight loss? How do you all got the deadweight loss? Or do you all assume that there is a when there is this, do you all assume that there is any government intervention on? Okay, so there is a market. Okay, can you all give me equilibrium price and quantity? How do we get here? Equilibrium price and quantity in this market. 65 price, okay. Quantity 50. Okay, so you have this, you have a quantity of price of 65 and a quantity of 50, right? Then they're saying in this question, now the government is imposing a price flow of 72 rupees. So they're coming and they're setting a price flow here, right, of 72. So now when they set a price flow of 72, they're asking you what is the deadweight loss. So when they set a price of 72, what happens? The market quantity falls, no? So can you all check at price 72, what is the price that suppliers are willing to supply? Suppliers are willing to supply at the price of 72, 36. Yes. Okay. So suppliers are willing to supply 36 units at the price of, okay, 57. Can you just recheck? Put 72 into the supply equation. QS equals minus 15 plus 72. Sorry, minus 15 plus 72. You should get, how much you will get? 36? Sorry. This is the demand. No? The consumers are willing to buy 36. How much are the suppliers willing to supply? That is 72. Sorry. No, 72. That is 57. Okay. Yes. So at the price of 72, right, when this minimum price has been imposed, consumers are willing to buy only 36 units. The suppliers, if you can supply curve, suppliers are willing to supply 57. But now, will the suppliers go and supply 57 in the market? Yes or no? What do you think will happen? Do you think they'll supply 57 in the market? No, right? They will not supply 57 in the market. Why? Because if they supply 57, they will face a huge loss. Because at this price of 72, consumers are willing to buy only how much? Consumers are willing to buy only 36 units. So if consumers are willing to buy only 36 units, if you go and supply 57 units, you're facing a huge loss. So they will only supply 36. So then what happens? Remember this area, right? This now they are not talking about, I don't think, I'm hoping the answer doesn't have any assumption on whether you have to have a deficiency payment or price support where the government is purchasing. They're not talking about that, no. So then if this is it, this is all that they have told you, no. So then this is consumer surplus, right? This area is producer surplus, right? This area over here, right? This area that is over here, this triangle here is deadweight loss. Is that what you took to do your calculation? Yes, no? How did you all calculate deadweight loss? Whoever who calculated, what was your logic behind it to calculate deadweight loss? Okay, they're asking, okay, let me see if I got the question wrong. Is this. There is a maximum price. Calculate the amount of deadweight loss that would result from price flow imposed in this market if it's price 72. Assuming there was a price support system. Okay, so you assume there is a price support system. Assume the government purchased. I'm not very sure which whether you have to assume. So once the actual answer comes, we'll check. So if you're not assuming that there is a government purchase, then that triangle should be deadweight loss. If you're assuming the government purchases, then, right, if you assume the, guys, I'm hoping this is making sense, right? If you assume the government is purchasing, then this part becomes deadweight loss. If you assume there is a deficiency payment, then this part here becomes a deadweight loss. So I don't know if there is an assumption. Anyone who calculated the area of this? Okay, how do you calculate this, guys? Right? Okay, we'll go with this. Can you tell me? We'll calculate it in simple terms, right? Can you first tell me what is the consumer surplus before? Consumer surplus before any thing happened, before the maximum price or anything. What is the consumer surplus? 90 minus 65. So I think it's half. Maximum price is 90, no? This is 90. This price is 90. So consumer surplus before was half, that is 90 minus 65 multiplied by the quantity of 50. How much do we get? 625. Okay, 625. What is the producer surplus before? Okay, I'm running out of space now. Give me a second. Okay, producer surplus before, how much do we get? 1250. Okay, So produce surplus before, you all are saying it's 1250. I'm going with the answers that you all are giving me, right? So now after this price flow has been imposed, remember, after price flow has been imposed, this small area that is over here becomes consumer surplus. So can you all tell me what is the new consumer surplus? New consumer, that small triangle, that is half into 90 minus 72 into 36. How much do we get there? The new consumer surplus there, 3 to 4. Okay, new consumer surplus 3 to 4. Can you find the new producer surplus? New producer surplus, guys, will become this part. Remember, producer surplus, you can take this entire part. Now we are assuming that there is no government purchase, nothing, right? Because they are not told in the question. So this entire part will become producer surplus now. So how do you find the area of this now? Anyone? One thing you can do is you can break down. You don't really have to find the area of a trapezium. You can break it down. Break it into two small parts. So now you see that if you can find the price that is here and the, okay, what is the minimum supply price? Can someone tell me? Minimum supply price is 15. Okay, so this is 15 then. Okay, can you all find the price that is here? How do you find the price that is here? This price, this, the Ghana method, 51. Sure. So what do you have to do? So you see the supply curve, no? In the supply curve, so you have the supply curve QS equals minus 15 plus P. So when the quantity supplied is 36, what is the price? That is what you have to find. 51. Yes. So QS equals, they're saying minus 15 plus P. So when the QS is 36, what is the P? Yeah, so 51. So P equals 51. So this price here is 51. Okay, so now can you find the areas of this small thing? So if you find the area of the, let's say, rectangle, it is 72 minus 51. 72 minus, sorry, 72 minus 51 into 36. That is the area of the triangle. Sorry, area of the rectangle. Area of the triangle is half into how much? That is 51 minus 15, height 51 minus 15 into what is the length, that is again 36. Can you solve this and let me know how much do we get? I don't know, I've got answers of 2 to something. What do you get? 72 minus 51 into 36, we get this as 756. This is 756, just check. And this part 51 minus 15 into minimum price is 0 then. When the price is 0, no, minimum price is not 0 and it's 15. This is into 36, 1296 then. Is that what you'll get? Another 51 minus 15 into 36. No, that is 648. 72 minus 51 into 36. 300. 72 minus 51 into 36. Okay, 756. 648. Which one is 648? 14 is the trapezium area. Okay, so if you're finding the area of trapezium, how do you go? So area of trapezium is, okay, trapezium balnanam. So trapezium is, you get the sums of the this side, right? You get this side is 72 minus 51, that is 21 plus, correct me if I'm wrong, 72 minus 15 is 57, right? Divided by 2 into the height 36. This is how you get the area of trapezium, right? I'm hoping my maths, I have not forgotten my math. 21 plus 57 divided by 2 into 36, 1404. 1404. Okay, maybe I missed it up here. Okay, 648. This is 648. Okay, I didn't get the half, no. Sorry. So yeah, this is 640. So same thing, right? This is the balance. Okay, I didn't multiply it by half. Okay, so same thing, right? You get 1404. Both methods should give you the same answer. Nothing. Guys, where are you all lost? Oh, did I make a mistake? So what are we doing? We are finding the area of this yellow trapezium. To find the area of yellow trapezium, one way I did is I separated. I separated into a rectangle and a triangle. So I found the area of the rectangle, right? And then I found the area of the triangle. So rectangle is this one, 72 minus 15, that's the length. Not 1404. I'm not a revision class student, but I've been attending this paper class since I joined. I would like to get today's recording. Too fast. We'll see. I'll try to sort it out. Drop me a text after. Okay. Produce a surplus after this maximum price. Yes, I don't have the answer scheme, so I don't really know. I'm also going with my listing. So produce a surplus after this minimum price has been imposed is this area, right? This area, this entire area. There's a trapezium here. To find the area of this trapezium, there is two ways. You can actually find the area of a trapezium, or you can divide this into a rectangle and a let's say this thing. Okay, 756 plus 648. So you can do this, right? You can either find the entire trapezium. That calculation is only this. So how do you find the area of trapezium, guys? This is maths now. What you do, you take the two sides, the two parallel sides. So the parallel, this side is 21, this side is 57. 21 plus 57, you divide by 2, multiplied by this vertical distance, 36. You get 1404. Okay, that's the producer surplus. If not, how you can find the producer surplus is by getting the area of this rectangle, right? This part, that is 72 minus 51, that is the height, multiplied by 36. So 756. And at the area of the triangle. So triangle is half into 51 minus 15. So 51 minus 15 into 36. So then you get, so then you still get 1404. So there are two methods. So earlier I didn't divide this by 2. That's why I got 1200. Yeah. Fine with the new producer surplus. No. Fine. Okay. So then they're asking you for deadweight loss now. Okay. So can you tell me the change in consumer surplus? Change in CS. What is the change in consumer surplus? Earlier it was 625. Now it's 324. So 625 minus 324 is 301. No? Yes. So change in consumer surplus is a minus 301. It has decreased. Okay. Change in producer surplus is equal to 1250 became 1404. It's a plus 154. 1250 became 144. Right? So it's a plus 144. Okay. Then give me a second. Okay. 72 minus 51 into 14 divided by 2. Get 147. Is the difference between this 147? Yeah. No. How did the 57 come? Yeah. So the change in consumer surplus is this. Change in producer surplus is this. So if that is the case, what is the deadweight loss? You get the deadweight loss by getting the changes. No? The deadweight loss here is 147. So one way of getting this ideally, because they are giving you 8 marks here, they want you to calculate it the long way. Or else, even if you want, you can get the area of this triangle, this rectangle over here. Sorry, not rectangle, this triangle. Get the area of this triangle. You still should get 147. Yeah, so that is the answer. So that should be the answer. I'm hoping that is the method they would have used in this paper, because they have not now they are not told, no, they have not told whether the government is purchasing the excess supply or there's a deficiency payment, nothing like that. So I don't know, I'm not 100% sure. There can be a change. How did I get 147, guys? I got the change in consumer supply minus 301, change in producer supply 144. So I added these together, minus 301 plus 147. I get a minus 147. So that is the deadweight loss. Deadweight loss is always minus. It's a negative. It's a loss. No, got confused. Yes, to find deadweight loss, right? First you calculate the consumer surplus before the subsidy. Calculate the producer surplus before the subsidy. Done, right? That is the first thing we did. Consumer surplus, not the subsidy, before the minimum price. Producer surplus, got. Then what do we do after this is now we calculate the new consumer surplus. New consumer, this small part, got it. Then we calculate new producer surplus. New producer surplus is this trapezium. So to get the new producer surplus, right, that is only either you can get the entire trapezium, or you can break it down in two parts and you get 1404. Then what you do, you have to get the change in consumer surplus is how much? 625 is the before, new one is through 324. So what is the change? It has fallen by 301, right? So the change in producer surplus is this. So yes, you can take economic surplus and get the change also. That's also fine, right? You get this, then you at the end you get the deadweight loss. I'm guessing that is how they would have done it, right? Once the original marking scheme is out, I'll let you all know. But do we put the minus there? Yes, if you want, you can put the minus. Deadweight loss is anyway minus. We can say deadweight loss. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So that also you can do. So don't go with this. Don't directly find the area of this triangle, because why? This is the 8-mark question now, guys. So if you are directly finding the area of the triangle, that means yes, you will get the same answer of 147. It's correct. But you might not end up getting the entire 8 marks. You show the method, you show this, the consumer surplus, producer surplus, change, and that is how you're getting the deadweight loss of 147. Even if you calculate the area of this triangle, so area of this triangle, if you're getting, so that is half into 72 minus 51, right? 72 minus 51, that is the height, into the width, that is 50 minus 36, that is 14. So there also you will get 147 as deadweight loss. So that is also correct. This is also correct. But for an 8-mark question, the better way is to go with this longer one than the shorter one. Fine. No. But this needs a little bit of understanding. It needs a bit of, you need to know minimum prices. You need to know this thing. Right? Then I think it would make sense. So on your end, please go through the parts and come. Right? If there's any question, we'll discuss later. Right? So on the next class, I will start unit number 4. Right? So that's it with unit number 2 and 3. It took some time. Okay. In unit number 4, we'll start with the MCQs and we'll do the essay questions there. Why have they allocated 8 marks, guys? They want 8 marks. They are allocating it because they want the longer method. They want this longer method. They don't want you to calculate it using the shorter method. They want you to show the logic behind what deadweight loss is. Deadweight loss, how do you get the logic behind it? You get the changes. You see that what is the loss in consumer surplus, producer surplus, and then that is how you get deadweight loss, the logic behind it. After this entire logic has been made, only this area has come. So short form is only calculating this area. But they give you 8 marks because they want you to calculate the entire thing. Do we get unit 2 and 3 questions separately? Yes, now in your syllabus, you will get 2 and 3 separately. So unit 2, you will get question number 2. Unit 3, you will get question number 3. That is how it will be there. Yeah. So I know this is a little bit of a tricky question, but it's a good question. I like this question. It's good to have a question like this than, every time tax and subsidy and tax and subsidy. It's good to have a question like this and test a bit of, knowledge of the students. Okay, so that's it. I have a meeting at 4:30, so I don't think I'll be staying and clarifying questions. I've not even had lunch. I'll sort that out. Recording revision class students, I will provide it. So ideally maybe by tonight. The others, if you all have any questions, you can text me on WhatsApp. We'll sort things out. Okay. So see you all again on next Sunday. Welcome, guys. See you.